Welcome to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25 Media. We feature top founders, executives, and business leaders from all over the world.
Chad Franson here, co-host for this show where we feature top restaurateurs, investors, and business leaders. This is part of our Spot On series. Spot On has the best-in-class payment platform for retail, and they have a flagship solution called Spot On Restaurant, where they combine marketing, software, and payments all in one. They've served everyone from larger chains like Dairy Queen and Subway to small mom-and-pop restaurants. To learn more, go to spoton.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. We help B2B businesses to get ROI, clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships through Done For You podcasts. If you have a B2B business and want to build great relationships with clients, referral partners, and thought leaders in your space, there's no better way to do it than through podcasts and content marketing. To learn more, go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. I want to give a shout out and a special thanks to Lauren Coulter, integrator and chief biscuit eater at Biscuit Belly, for introducing us to today's guest, Jonathan Weathington. Lauren was a previous guest on the show, and you can find out more about her and Biscuit Belly, her restaurant, by listening to that episode. It's called Bringing Home the Bacon, or you can visit biscuitbelly.com. Now, without further ado, Jonathan Weathington is the CEO of Shuckin Shack Oyster Bar, a fresh seafood and cold beer concept with multiple locations in the Carolinas, along with Georgia, Maryland, Florida, and Illinois. He has been featured on the cover of FSR magazine and has made appearances on Good Morning America, along with being quoted and featured in various publications, including the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, Nation's Restaurant News, and other local, regional, and national newspapers, journals, and magazines. His approach to hospitality and business is characterized by a no-nonsense attitude. Hey, Jonathan, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
Hey, great, Chad. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Hey, so for those of us who have not been to Shuckin Shack, tell us what a first-time customer might notice or experience when going there.
Sure. Well, I hope you have a hell of a good time. That first and foremost, really after that kind of authentic coastal experience, you walk in and instead of, this traditional welcome to insert name of place here, it's, hey, have a seat. We'll be right with you. Or, hey, have a seat. What can I grab you to drink? Or sit wherever you'd like. Something that's pretty authentic and something that you might find along the coast at a dive bar that serves great food. But, from there, kind of the expectations take over and we deliver, and we hope you like cold beer or cocktails. We start there, and then we go straight into basically wild caught American domestically served product. It's a higher quality than stuff you might get overseas, and our customers seem to love it. We do a really good job at it.
Sounds fantastic. Hey, can you tell me a little bit about your background? I know you have a master's in international relations, but now you're running Shuckin Shack. How did that all work out?
It's a circuitous route, I guess you could say, is the best characterization of my background. I did go to school and pursue a master's in international relations, which prepared me for foreign service. And, kind of one of those weird conundrums when people get out of grad school and undergrad, where you start applying for jobs, and those jobs want you to, it's an entry level position, right? But they want you to have 5 years of experience. And so I got caught in that weird time in between basically 2007 and 2010 when the employee market was flooded with people overqualified for everything. And so I kind of became a number, so to speak. But prior to that, I had spent essentially my whole career, even through college and grad school and high school, of course, and before, in retail and customer service. So I had spent, 15 plus years retail customer service, anything from shipping packages to seasonal employee, to working at Blockbuster Video when Blockbuster was kind of the king back in the day, to Best Buy. I've worked for Hilton Hotels and several others. And so that's my circuitous route. And I guess, when things don't work out, you figure out what works, and you keep on keeping on. And, that kind of led me to Shuckin Shack.
Yeah. So you joined Shuckin Shack and you were promoted to CEO within 6 months. Apparently that background doing kind of like, jobs that maybe young people would have really helped you.
I think I was the only one that would take the job. And all jokes aside, no, for me, it was, I knew the founders, which was helpful. I was working with one of the founders at another business. He and I had actually started a bar business together when I was 24. Ran that for 2 years. We ended up not renewing our lease. And so I had a good connection to the founders. I was around, very fortunate to be around when the concept started. So I saw it come out of its infancy at its first location. And I was actually a customer that became CEO over time. And, the guys kind of set me down at a board meeting and said, we're going to hire a CEO. And I thought, that's great. I'm looking forward to learning under someone. And, and they said, oh, by the way, it's you. And I said, okay, let's do this. And so I was 29 and had never obviously served at any sort of C-level executive position, but always eager, always challenged, love a good challenge. And, I think if you keep your messaging clear and your desires clear and the goals clear, which is to serve your customers exceptionally well, then everything else seems to fall into place.
So when you're characterized, when you say you're characterized by a no nonsense attitude, what does that mean?
I think people overcomplicate hospitality. First and foremost, I'm a firm believer that there's really two elements of hospitality when it comes down to it. That's the person giving the hospitable nature attitude, and that's the person receiving the hospitable nature attitude. I think too many times, whether it's restaurant groups or retail groups or whomever, we try to complicate and we throw pieces in there that we believe will serve as uh, I guess substitutes for what hospitality is really all about. Hospitality is really all about one person showing another person a good time and making sure that they return. That's it. And so when we bring in, technology implementation and loyalty programs, and here's a robot and here's a screen to look at, and please order on our kiosk and please have a seat, and please do this, and we want you to do this, and can we have your phone number? We promised you not to call, but we'll text you, and can we have your email? And don't you want to do this? And aren't you interested in that? And can't we follow up with you 3 or 4 times a week over the life of the customer? It's not necessary. It's simply not necessary. If you do a good enough job at executing on food and beverage, in our case, and show people a good time, they're going to come back, and you don't need all of that extra stuff. And so that's just kind of my attitude towards things.
So you have been the CEO there for nearly a decade. I think you joined the company in 2014. You were pretty young. What's do you have kind of a story that stands out to you during your time so far? Like that was unusual or an interesting story that
Well, I
stands out
think,
to you during your time as a leader?
being in hospitality, I think you have the nature of having unusual stories all the time. Something weird is going on all the time when you're serving, hundreds of thousands of customers a year, and you have full service restaurants where that customer relationship may last an hour. Our average customer sits in a seat about 50 minutes. And so you add up all those minutes together of every customer that sits in seats in our restaurants, and something weird is bound to happen. I don't know that it's necessarily weird, but I'm still very much in the business on a day-to-day basis. And I think that sometimes catches people off guard. And, I still attend every single new store opening. I will work the kitchen in a new store opening if we are short staffed. I know how to run a fry station. I know how to expo. I'm a terrible bartender, but I can certainly pretend like I'm pretty good. I know how to talk to people. And I think that having conversations, just generally speaking, with whether it's an average consumer and, they pull you aside and say, thank you so much. Do you work here? And I say, well, kind of, I work for Shuckin Shack in the office, and that's usually the extent of it. And, I love it. It's something for me that, it's always it has been very near and dear to my heart. And, I do what I believe in, and I believe in true hospitality. And I think that extends all the way up through C-level leadership and founders and everyone should be able to step in at any moment and give the customer a great time. And that's what I like doing.
What kind of a message do you think that sends to the staff? Normally you think of the CEO as somebody you'd never see and is in some office somewhere, but when you see that you're willing to do things that other regular employees are doing, what message does that communicate?
I do it altruistically. I don't really do it to send a message first and foremost.
Mhm.
I think I really believe in showing hospitality. I truly do believe that. I think the message that is received for the most part is that, these guys work hard. It's not just me. My whole office staff can do that. And so while I may be the one on the podcast talking about it, my entire office staff can do that. So we're not afraid to step in. And that's a part of who we are, not just professionally, but personally as well. And so, for me, I'm actually not that far removed from front lines. Yeah, I'm a CEO of a multi-million dollar company at this point, but it wasn't that long ago that I was an hourly employee, working in sales and commission. And so for me, hanging on to that connection has been critically important in connecting with our frontline employees and looking at them and saying, no, you don't understand. It wasn't that long ago that I was right there. I've been an hourly employee in the 2000s. And so keep that in mind. In the 2010s, I've been an hourly employee before. So keep that in mind. So I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you succeed at your job. And I'm saying, like, you can make this a career if you decide to make this a career. If you don't, and you're just here to collect your paycheck and move on, I totally get that too, because there's a place for that.
Has there been, you started out even at a high level at an early age. Has there been maybe a mistake that you remember that you've kind of learned from and turned out to be a good thing that you made it?
I mean, I make mistakes every day. I think I think being very vocal about your intentions and being very vocal and being very opinionated, which I tend to be, sometimes rubs people the wrong way. And I think one of the things that I have learned over time is not that you should curb or change your messaging, but you have to figure out when to deliver that messaging. And so at times I come across like, at whether it's new store openings or meeting someone for the first time or in a new vendor relationship. We're in business with several vendors within our company who we've been in business with for years and years. And my first interaction with them was very brash. And it was a no, I'm not interested. And then I had to go back and say, wait. Just because I say no, I'm not interested doesn't mean I'm not interested forever. Like, just press pause. I'm not interested right now. I'm working on one thing at a time or a couple things at a time. This is not something that's an initiative for me right now. And so I think understanding that the way you communicate things can be just as equally important as what you're communicating. And that took me a little bit of time to learn, because I am typically fairly concise and I am typically curt with a lot of people. And I think that comes across as brash. And I don't intend to be that way. But I typically say exactly what I'm thinking. But I've learned over time that's not always the best approach.
I saw on the Shuckin Shack website that you guys do franchising. What do
That's
you
right.
look for in a potential franchisee?
Someone who can serve their community and talk to other people. It's pretty much that simple. I mean, of course, there are financial qualifications and all of those things when it comes to franchisees and multi-unit franchisees, and you can read all of that on our website. But practically speaking, we're looking for someone that can be hospitable. We're looking for someone that can, we're interviewing for a position in our office a couple of weeks ago, and listed on the job description that we were interviewing for is, you feel like you're a person that can talk to anyone on earth at any time. That's exactly what we're looking for in a franchisee as well. I think people get confused or have a misleading understanding of what franchising is as a whole, especially on the restaurant side. They think, oh, I don't want a chain restaurant in my town. Well, 9 times plus out of 10, that chain restaurant is locally owned and operated. It's a small business just like any other small businesses on that same street. And we are looking for people who can truly run their restaurant as a small business, who are going to be there every day, who know their customer base, who speak to their customer base, who know how to inspire others when it comes to employee retention, and can show their community a good time and can keep that business open and consistently do it 363 days a year.
Have you ever had to turn down maybe even somebody who was financially qualified but maybe didn't fit the brand?
All the time, all the time. We've turned down more people than we brought into our system, where it's, and I'll tell people when they come in, and we do an executive interview, and we sit down with them, and we've looked at their financial qualifications, we've verified their income, we verified assets and things like this, and then they'll come in for this, what we call approval day or discovery day. Every brand has a little bit of a different name for it. They'll come in, they'll sit at our conference table, and it's, that day is less about us giving our presentation. By this point, we know, they know who we are. There's an educational process. It's really about us learning the candidate. And there have been, 2 dozen, 3 dozen times over the last 10 years where we've sat people at that table and we say, well, tell us about you. What do you do in your community? What are you into? And we get into these really qualitative questions, and it catches people off guard. They're expecting us to say, what's your investment profile? How do you feel about risk? You understand that business is hard, and they know all that at this point, and we know all that too. And I have looked at people flat out as deadpan as possible at the end of those days. Of course, not in front of other candidates, but in an executive interview portion, and said, "Hey, I think you're going to be a great franchisee, but it's not going to be for Shuckin Shack. I think you will make a great franchisee in another system. You're just not a great fit for what we're doing." That's tough to hear. In their shoes, I know it is. But at the end of the day, what we're after is long-term success in our franchise locations, and we have to be extremely selective with who we bring in.
What would make Shuckin Shack a good opportunity for somebody who does fit the brand?
Oh, for someone who does fit the brand, I mean, the quickest 30-second elevator pitch I give people is whatever commercial street is nearest to you right now, where there's a bunch of restaurants, walk out into the center of that street at 3 a.m. when no one's around, and look one way and look the other way, count the number of burger, taco, and pizza joints, and then count the number of seafood joints. And I can guarantee you which one is going to have the lowest. So the proof is in the pudding. It's an incredibly underserved category. There's simply nothing like us on the market. We believe that we're the largest oyster bar chain in the country, and we're not even at 20 units yet. It's extremely underserved. And so just from a market positioning standpoint, there's a ton of white space available.
How would you describe the culture at Shuckin Shack, and how much does that come from the top, I guess?
So I would describe the culture as authentic. Culture is not created by people sitting in boardrooms at tables and in office chairs and things like that. Culture is a sum of parts, and so our culture is determined by the people that we have in our restaurants, both the people that are our customers, and of course there are employees as well. So when we hire people, we're essentially hiring to contribute to our culture. And we personally, internally, at our two company locations, and then also in the corporate office, I tell people this: we hire for personality. Like when we get in the interview portion, I tell every single candidate that comes to this, for this past interview, I may have had 100 applicants. I narrowed it down to 10. I interviewed 5, and I tell every single one of those 5 that comes in, look, I know you can do the job. Okay. Also, the other 4 people that are interviewing for this position, they can also do the job. However, what we're looking for is someone who fits well within our office environment, someone we believe that will be here, maybe not long term, but at least long enough to make a positive impact and push the company forward. And so that's kind of the attitude that we take. We're an authentic company. We believe that we do what we say we're going to do, and we look for people who are exactly that.
I know Shuckin Shack has done a lot of things kind of outside of the business area, to help the community, things like that. Tell me about some of those, and tell me about why you feel that's important for your brand.
Sure. I think one of the things, the thing that we're most proud of is our annual contribution to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. This past year, for instance, we raised over $80,000 for LLS, and for a company our size, that's a lot of money. And so we're most proud of that because one of our co-founders, Matt, has leukemia. It's the kind that's controllable, and so he takes a pill every day and leads a fairly normal life. But not just leukemia and lymphoma and the associated blood cancers, but everyone in some way, shape, or form is affected by cancer. Everyone knows someone. I lost my father to cancer, and so cancer is very near and dear to all of us here. We have cancer survivors in our office, and so for us, it's something that when all of this kind of transpired several years ago, when Matt was diagnosed, we said, what is one thing that we can do that everyone can connect to? And that was it. And so we do local fundraisers for LLS. Then we do annually, we just finished our 2nd music tour called the Fresh and Raw Tour. We do that every year. We hire 2 Nashville up and coming musicians, and then they essentially tour our entire restaurant footprint. We're the only people in the country doing this, and that they go and we set up weekend dates at every single one of our locations, and all of the money that we raise on those days goes straight to LLS. And so that's the thing that we're definitely most proud of, because we know that, quite frankly, we don't make any money off of it. We make no money off of it. It's a gigantic expenditure on our part, but we're doing it because, just like I said before, we do what we believe in, and that's something that we believe in.
Wow, that's awesome. Hey, I have one more question for you, but first, how can people find out more about Shuckin Shack, whether as a potential customer or a potential franchisee?
Sure. The easiest thing is our website, www.theshuckinshack.com. That's as easy as it gets.
Last question. When you go to Shuckin Shack as a customer, what's your kind of like go-to meal or drink or everything of choice?
So I'm walking distance from our downtown Wilmington location. And when I'm in town, I eat lunch there almost every day. And we have, I sit at the bar at the tables, and during the lunch, we have basically three ladies who always serve me, and they always know what I want, but their question is the usual. So the usual, quote unquote, for me is ahi tuna appetizer, blackened rare, meaning just touch it on either side, right? That's what I'm looking for. Side salad, no cucumber, sliced tomato. That's my go-to. If I really want seafood, if I'm after seafood, Low Country Boil is almost always the answer.
Okay, sounds fantastic. Hey, Jonathan, it's been great to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining me today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Chad.
So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25. Visit rise25.com to check out more episodes of the show and to learn more about how you can start your own podcast.